Hey everybody, and Tony here. Well, this particular opera by Giacomo Puccini is certainly a way to kick off this 4th of July weekend, which I would like to call a 4th of July weekend of fiery divas. And right here on the first diva that I'm going to be talking about, so to say, is Minnie from La Fanciulla del West, or known in English as The Girl of the Golden West, and it was shown at the Zurich Opera House. The conductor was Marco Armigliato. The production was by Barry Kosky. The set design was by Rufus Didvicius. The costumes were by Klaus Bruns. The lights were handled by Frank Evan. The chorus master was Jörg Hermerli, and the dramaturgy was by Klaus Spahn. Now, this was the first time I have ventured into this opera house in particular, and I basically purchased a DVD of a production of La Finta Giardiniera by Mozart, which was shown at this particular opera house, the Zurich Opera House. And my goodness, was this opera house so awesome in terms of architecture. It was just so grand, so vivid, simply put, so magnificent. It was just a huge thrill and such a huge privilege to be in this very opera house and to even catch the Girl of the Golden West in this particular opera house as well. And let me just say, this is absolutely one of the best moments so far, and I would really love to say that I would really put the Zurich Opera House really high in terms of how great it is as an opera house. It is so up there with the likes of the Metropolitan Opera House and the Royal Opera House. Hell, it's even awarded one of the best opera houses worldwide, and that's actually saying something. Now, going into what I have experienced with Puccini's Girl of the Golden West. Now, I haven't really heard of this opera for so many times. I've only heard a few excerpts of it, mainly Minnie's aria Laggiù nella Soledad and Dick Johnson's Che la mi creda. But all I can say is that when it comes to Puccini operas, he certainly knows how to compose great music for women, whether they be Mimi or Musetta from La Bohème, Tosca, Madama Butterfly, and in this particular case, Minnie. He's composed a lot of great arias for the female voice, whether they be the sweet, timid, and very gentle souls like Mimi, Liu, Suor Angelica, and in some cases Lauretta, or even that of Fidelia and Anna from Le Villi, to those of a very strong background, to those type of women who you do not want to mess with every day, and these type of women who sometimes make men into boys, well, only one of them, but are also very passionate and very, very determined women, like Tosca, Turandot, and of course, Minnie. Now, what makes Minnie a very special character, and why a lot of sopranos, whether they be full lyric, spinto, or dramatic, what makes them really, want to sing this role so much is because it's how fascinating of a character she is. She is so determined. She loves to, be in the man's world. She loves to gamble. She loves to enjoy the thrills that not a lot of women love to face every day. And she's very passionate about how she feels for Dick Johnson, in reality, Ramirez, the bandit, and she is never afraid to speak her mind. So overall, Minnie is definitely a great character, a great Puccini heroine in terms of just how, developed she is as a character, how tough she is, how strong she is as a character, and she's definitely a female role model that a lot of women, young women especially, and young girls can look up to because, it is obvious that she also carries a gun because, it's for self-defense, of course. She basically is a woman who has lived in the gold rush and has lived through these tough times and has dealt with a lot of, well, gender issues, and this is why she is so fascinating as a character and why a lot of sopranos love to sing her. So, going into this production of this opera, now, traditionally, this opera is set in the Gold Rush era, and in this production of this opera, it's basically set somewhere in, like, let's say probably present day, but it's totally up to interpretation. And my honest opinion about the production, I don't really care for it. I did not like it at all. It was just so drab. Well, the backgrounds were drab. It just felt so lifeless. I mean, where's the color? Where is the color? And where's the life of this production? It just feels kind of lifeless. The only, well, act that has a little bit of life added into it was basically in the third act, which felt a little bit more lifelike. But the first two acts, I didn't really care. And what was up with Sheriff Jack Rance's costume? It did not make him look like some sheriff. It made him look like, a part of the Jets or the Sharks from the West Side Story. You know, if I would have really picked the costume for Jack Rance, I would have wanted it to be more of a trench coat, a brown trench coat, and have a badge on here that states that he's the sheriff of this town, and make him wear a fedora, have a polo shirt on, and a collared shirt on, and then have him wear some suspenders, black pants, and, boots, or any type of fancy shoes. Not like one of those, gang leaders from the West Side Story. His costume in this production really rubbed me the wrong way, and for somehow I would have probably went out of my way to make this costume look better, but I don't really know how to do costume work for crap. But let me just say, this costume for Jack Rance that I saw was absolutely ill-fitting because, well, he's the sheriff. He's supposed to have something that makes him look more dignified, a lot more authoritative, not someone that's, just simply put among the people, so to say. He should have something that's a lot more, he should have had something that's a lot more authoritative, something that screams a lot more power in his presence. The only costumes that I ever like in this production are basically those of Minnie's costumes, and of course that of Ashby's, and that's pretty much saying something. The other costumes, like that of Wokela's and Billy Jackrabbit's, I thought were quite ridiculous. Especially that of Wokela's. I mean, what was her whole gimmick, like playing around with this doll? It just seemed rather weird. So, overall, while the costumes for the most part are quite decent, with the exception of that of Jack Rance's and that of Wokela's, I actually found the production as a whole to be kinda meh. It's really not something I would love to write home about. But even though this production really rubbed me the wrong way, it's the singing that sold it for me in the best positive way. It was just so full of great singing all around, especially from that of Miss Catherine Naglestad as Minnie. Oh my god. I saw Miss Naglestad singing the final scene of Salome back in Berlin, and she was fantastic. Here as Minnie, I thought she was just simply put a powerhouse. She had such a powerful voice. The way that she sang all of those B flats, B's, and high C's were just so thrilling. And as an actress, she was totally spot on. Not only with Minnie's strong and very daring personality, but also with that of her, her more vulnerable side. She basically makes Minnie a human being and not just some Genki girl with a pistol that likes to, show how strong and how tough she is as a woman and how she can survive on her own. Of course she can survive on her own. But lest we forget, she's also a human being just like the rest of us. So overall, I definitely felt that Catherine Naglestad was, just simply put, wonderful. More than just wonderful, but simply put, a powerhouse as Minnie. She was just that fantastic. Zoran Todorovic as Ramirez, aka Dick Johnson, had such a powerful voice and has been able to be so homogenous throughout all the registers, whether they be his high A's, B's, and C's. He sings them all very beautifully. However, there are definitely moments in the first act where he could have used a little bit more shading, especially in some of the more florid lines, but he was able to improve in the second act in terms of using a little bit more shading in his tone. And I thought that was just absolutely great. And I know this is a bit of a nitpick, but there are a lot of moments where he just simply put appears hard-faced throughout the entire opera. Of course it makes sense that Ramirez is a bandit with a very dark past, but come on, I need a little bit more variety. So even though Mr. Todorovic lacked a little bit of variety in terms of his acting and in a little bit of his singing, let's just say that his voice was able to carry through, whether they be in the high notes or in the low notes. I mean, he's still a powerhouse nonetheless, and lest we forget, he was also very well known in the full lyric spinto and a little bit of pieces of the dramatic tenor repertoire, so he's absolutely in his element as Ramirez vocally. Though I would have wanted to see a little bit more of his expressions on stage, and I feel like those are definitely what he needs to work on, even though he is a veteran singer. And making his Zurich Opera House debut in the role of Jack Rance is American baritone Scott Hendricks. Now, I didn't really know that much of Scott Hendricks. I only saw a little snippet of him as Enrico from Lucia de Lammermoor through this trailer that I saw, starring Albina Shagimuratova and Dmitry Pitas as the lovers. I've only heard a little bit of his voice on YouTube, but as Jack Rance, I thought he was very decent. Oh, sure, he didn't have the rounder, richer, more booming voices like those of Gian Giacomo Guelfi, Piero Cappuccilli, Cheryl Mills, Roberto Frontali, Renato Brusson, Leo Nucci, and many other Verdi baritones who've also specialized in probably a little bit of Wagner and a little bit more of the meatier baritone repertoire. But he held his own very well. He was able to make Jack Rance a very, let's simply put, three-dimensional character. I mean, he didn't just play his bad side, but he was also playing his tortured state, his obsessive state. The way he wanted Minnie so much to be his forever instead of some common man known as Dick Johnson. I mean, he was able to pull off Jack Rance's characterization very well. And his voice was solid all throughout, even though it lacked a bit of the weight of those great Italian or even Verdi or even Wagnerian baritones. I mean, he's still maturing as a dramatic baritone, so it takes time, but overall, he's actually very solid all around. And Shane Davidson as Sonora is another great baritone. I especially love the banter between him and Hendricks in the first act. Now that was just a moment of seeing two baritones yelling at each other, trying to beat the crap out of each other. It was just so fantastic. And he was able to hold his own very well with his very fine, solid voice, and it was just simply put great. And the role of Ashby is sung by Pavel Daniluk, and he was just fantastic. His sonorous and very rich voice was just so purely awesome, so to say. And his presence on stage was just great. And all of the other male supporting singers, especially that of Wokla, sung by who was that woman again? Wokla. Judith Kutasi, and her lover, Billy Jackrabbit, sung by Dimitri Pakaladze. Yeah, I can't really pronounce that name. Were just overall fantastic. So overall, there was a lot of great singing, mainly from the principal characters, Minnie, Ramirez, Jack Rance, Sonora, and Ashby. Now, they really deserve the highest praise possible, especially that of Miss Catherine Naglestad. I thought she was the star of the evening, and the conducting done by Maestro Marco Almiriato was just superb, especially in the more dramatic scenes and especially in some of the softer scenes as well. It was just solid all around. So overall, even though I did not like the production, save for a few gems like the sound effects and of course at times the direction, it's the singing and the conducting that really was flawless all around, and this was definitely a very enjoyable evening, and this was definitely a great way to kick off this 4th of July weekend. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for my review of Donizetti's Roberto Devereux. Until then, this is Antoni signing off, wishing you all a good night, and I hope you all have a great 4th of July.